Well, I think they'll need to do more than this. Let's begin. The article says that Downing Street is reportedly holding talks about scrapping inheritance tax as a manifesto pledge, offering in a bid to win the next election. The Times reported that Number 10 was discussing whether to make abolishing the levy a commitment to shore up votes in so-called blue wall seats in 2025. Supporters argue that the policy could be a game changer in the south of England, where the Conservatives are defending constituencies vulnerable to gains from opposition parties. According to the paper, Rishi Sunak made halving inflation by the end of the year one of his key 5 ambitions for his leadership, and Jeremy Hunt, who apparently does not spell his name with a silent C, has signalled that this target will be prioritised over tax cuts. The wider economic challenge facing the Chancellor and Prime Minister was illustrated by official figures showing that the UK economy contracted in May, while a party continues to trail Labour in the polls. And a source said that it's about being an aspirational country. You work hard, play hard and pass on your wealth. And it's a live discussion. The rate of inheritance tax is currently 40% for estates worth more than £325,000, which is only charged on the proportion above that threshold. But estates of spouses and civil partners can pass on up to £1 million without any inheritance tax liability. Consumer price index inflation peaked at 11.1% growth last year and was reported at 8.7%. Also, abolishing the inheritance tax would cost the Treasury a potential £7 billion a year and would be contingent on that figure falling significantly, the Times reported. Now, of course, I don't know about you, but I personally feel that inheritance tax is bad. It's kind of like robbing the dead, isn't it, of all their wealth above a certain threshold. It's absolutely disgusting in my opinion. I mean, let's face it, people who have earned that much have either got a well-paid job, or in some cases been saving up their entire lives, only for then the government to come and say, oh, I'll take some of that, thank you very much. It's a bit like Robin Hood, robbing from the poor and giving to the rich, when it really shouldn't be that way. And admittedly, of course, while they will need to think about a replacement, because let's face it, £7 billion a year isn't exactly like losing a tenner, is it? I think any replacement that they do with this, or anything else, will have to be really thought through before they put out an announcement, because let's face it, they don't want to pee us off, do they? Especially before an election. And of course, if and when the inheritance tax is finally abolished, any future government that even thinks about bringing it back is more than likely going to get kicked out of the door, isn't it? Along with surely the TV licence and of course any stupid pay-per-mile system that they're thinking about bringing in for cars. It does make me wonder though if they'll probably settle on some sort of compromise instead of completely abolishing it. For example, they may raise the threshold to £1 million or £2 million before starting to put any tax in place. And whilst yes, £325,000 is a lot of money, it's not worth as much in these current times as it used to be, especially with the cost of living crisis going on and ridiculous inflation levels with, let's face it, everything we have to buy in the shops. Also, I don't really like the idea that we have to wait for an election for something like this to happen. And yes, I know obviously they're trying to get in power again, but don't they realise that people will judge them on what they've just done? Along with, of course, everything else in the past, but if they've just abolished the tax, which is going to be a game changer to quite a lot of people, then people will remember that. But no doubt the government presumably thinks this is crushing a walnut with a sledgehammer type of approach to win the next election. But do you know what? I think they're going to have quite an uphill battle as it is. And I personally hope that Keir Starmer does not get in, because even though the parties are basically quite similar at the minute, I still think he'll be a lot worse. Not that I want the Conservatives staying either, or more accurately Rishi for what he done to Boris. Along with all those members in the 2019 general election who got their seats because of Boris but then decided to help in the plan to oust him, which to be honest was completely disgraceful in my opinion. And speaking of Boris, it does actually make me wonder, if Rishi does actually lose in the 2024 general election, if he'll then try to put himself forward in the leadership contest, because let's face it, I don't think Rishi will probably stay on if he loses. Although with this whole privileges committee, which let's face it was in my opinion quite against Boris to begin with, I can't help but think that has actually ruined any chance that Boris may have to come back in the future. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see, won't we?